right, let's get started. Welcome back to our last day of the 12 Days of Systems to Move You from Ideas to Action series. I hope you've enjoyed it. Today, we're going to cover creating an exit plan by building wealth. And this is such a broad topic that we're only going to touch on a few areas, but my main goal here is to help you change your mindset and to start thinking with the end in mind. As always, if you have any questions, thoughts, or additional items to share, please feel free to throw them in the chat box. I've got it open. You can raise your hand on the Zoom screen, or you can unmute yourself and just feel free to interrupt me. If you're watching this on a replay on the YouTube channel, feel free to throw your questions in the comments section. I'm more than happy. I usually get notified of those and I can answer your questions there. Our learning objectives today are that we're going to talk about the basics or things that you need to do before you get started, even thinking about creating an exit plan. Then we'll talk about thinking about your net worth, which is going to lead us into the real game changer of passive income, which is then going to take us into the basics of creating your own wealth plan. And that goes hand in hand with learning about the flow of money. Then we're going to finish up with some wealth generating ideas to get you where you want to be. So, basics. As an independent contractor in real estate, you are a business owner. Make sure you're treating your real estate company as a business and start by establishing a legal entity, right? It might be a corporation or an LLC. The two things here, first being that you should always talk with your tax professional to make sure that you know what kind of entity is going to be best for you in your situation, not just for as a tax shelter, but also to just protect you as you grow your business. Second, you want to make sure that you know the real estate laws in your state where you are getting paid. Because, for instance, like in California, a broker can't pay commissions to an entity where there's any owner that's not a licensed real estate agent. So if you and your significant other decide to both be legal owners of the entity and your significant other isn't licensed, you can't actually get commission paid to the entity. It has to go to you personally, which defeats the purpose. So just some things to keep in mind when you're getting ready to establish a legal entity. You should have a dedicated business checking and savings accounts. All business expenses and income should go into and come out of those accounts first. Okay, you're going to pay yourself out of your business account, but all your checks and everything should go in there, and all expenses should come out of those accounts. And make sure that you are tracking your income and expenses. I recommend using a digital system for that so that when you're ready to hand it off to like an accountant or a CPA, it makes it easy for someone else just to continue instead of having to recreate your system. Okay, next, you want to make sure that you establish your financial dream team. This should include bookkeepers, an accountant, a financial planner, an attorney, and a coach. And then you want to make sure that you proactively meet with that dream team on a regular basis. Okay, the nice thing about having a dream team is that once you kind of make a game plan, they can start talking with each other and making sure that you've got the right game plan established for your end game, and make sure everything's set up appropriately. They can bounce things off each other to make sure that you're good to go. Now that you're tracking your income and expenses, you're going to master the MREA, or the Millionaire Real Estate Agent Chart of Accounts, and strategically categorize your income and expenses according to this chart of accounts. And you want to make sure to review it weekly. That's going to become your profit and loss statement. You should have a profit and loss statement for every business that you own, and real estate is no different. Make sure that you review that on a weekly basis. Once you have mastered tracking your income and expenses, now you're going to take it a step further and you're going to compare that P&L or that profit and loss statement to the MREA best practices. The Millionaire Real Estate Agent book has a whole section on how much of what percentage of income should go towards marketing expenses, what should go towards technology, what should go towards lead gen. And you want to compare your P&L to the MREA best practices. Why do you want to do that? Because the MREA was structured after interviewing several millionaire real estate agents and comparing where they're at and what their best practices were, and then they put it into a book so that you can take yourself into becoming a millionaire real estate agent. So those are best practices, helps you keep you in line and helps set your business up for success in the future. In addition, you're going to play red light, green light during market shifts. This is where you review all of your expenses, you highlight and mark those that you have to have, right? Versus those that you can cut or your optional expenses. This helps you stay ahead of the game. And sometimes you may need to temporarily cease those optional expenses. Okay. I actually recommend playing red light and green light, at least going through your statements and highlighting those expenses at least once a quarter, if not monthly, just so you know, kind of what you have coming out of your account and what are the musts and what's the optional on a regular basis. I think it's a good practice. You want to make sure to review your return on investment for all activities so that you can change and shift as necessary. So you're going to evaluate that ROI, return on investment. We're not going to jump too quickly to make those changes and shifts. Just so you know, if we start our farm today, we review the return on investment next month, it's probably not going to pencil out on paper. We want to give it some time. And depending on what lead gen activity or what activity you're doing, you may need to give it more time than others. So just kind of keep that in mind. Generally speaking, you kind of want to review that return on investment, usually on a quarterly basis, about every 3 months. We figured that most activities in real estate kind of have a 60-day cycle. So what we start today has 60 days before we start seeing the results of it. So we usually want to give things at least 90 days or once a quarter. And sorry, I was just making sure I did that right. And then with things like the farm that maybe have a longer lag time, right? Because we have to it's repetitive marketing. We may want to give that like a year before we actually review that return on investment. Finally, you're going to want to develop a long-term wealth plan. This should encompass the big three, or investment, tax, and estate. Okay. And that's where we're going to pick up. So when we start developing our wealth plan, we need to look at our net worth, right? Most agents, when we put together our goals for the year, they think about what do I need this year? What vacations do I want to take? What do I need to cover my expenses? What do I want to do to my house? And they don't think beyond that. Okay. And let's be honest, most agents don't even take the time to really put together a goal or a plan for the year. So if you're one of those agents that haven't quite done that yet, we are doing a goal planning or a business planning session on January 15th. You're welcome to join us for that. Most agents are lucky if they even think beyond one transaction at a time, right? It's kind of like living paycheck to paycheck. Oftentimes agents live transaction to transaction. So don't be like that. Think bigger than today, or even bigger than your next transaction, and even bigger than your goal for the year. We're going to focus on what kind of outcome we want from our actions long term. When it comes to wealth building, there are two parts. The first part is to increase your net worth. Okay. What do you want your net worth to be? Have you ever even thought about it? Or even what does wealthy look like to you? Right? If you're going to go this route, which you should, you want to make sure to put together a 3 and a 5-year goal for increasing your net worth. And you may even want to think about it on a longer term by continuing on to do a 10-year and even a 20 or a 30-year plan for your net worth. Does everybody know what net worth is? Anybody want to share what net worth is? All right, net worth is the total of your assets minus the total of your liabilities. Before I go on, Connie, you asked, the author of the Millionaire Real Estate book is, it's Gary Keller, along with some other authors, Dave Jenkins and Jay Papasan. And I have the special edition. It's got tabbies, makes it really easy to flip through it to the different sections, because it's not really one that you start at the beginning and read to the end. I mean, you do the first time, but then you go back and reference the different charts and stuff. If you want to know where to get this one, let me know and I will pull up the link. You can only get it certain places, and I'll send you a link to where to buy it. All right, so net worth, total of your assets minus the total of your liabilities. So if you have $5,000 in the bank, you don't have a retirement account, you have a car with a resale value of $45,000 and a house worth $565,000, then you have total assets in the amount of $615,000. Okay, everybody tracking with me there? We're not worried about liabilities at this point, just assets. Then we look at liabilities. If you have like $30,000 in student loans, you have a mortgage of $525,000, you have a car note in the amount of $47,000. Yes, that car note is more than the car is worth, which is oftentimes what happens to people when we finance cars. You have credit card debt totaling $12,000, or consumer credit card debt, right? $12,000. The total of your liabilities is $614,000. So $615,000 minus $614,000 means your net worth is $1,000. Okay, everybody should know where you're at with your net worth. There is no like, oh my gosh, I'm failing or I'm winning. Like, it is what it is. It just gives you a temperature gauge of where you're at. Once we know where we're at, then we want to establish those goals for your net worth. For some, it may be, gosh, I want a net worth of $1 million over the next 3 years. For other, it may be, gosh, I'd like a net worth of 50,000 in 3 years. For some, it may be, oh my gosh, I would just like a net worth of 0 in the next 3 years, right? So there's no wrong or right answer. You just need to establish what your goal is. And you're going to do it for 3 years, for 5 years. I'd recommend doing it for 10 years, and then either for 20 or 30 years out as well. Generally, the first step in increasing your net worth is going to be to focus on paying off all of your non-mortgage debt. I would also recommend that you consider not borrowing in the future for items that are going to depreciate in value. Okay, like consumer debt, your car, right? It depreciates. So don't borrow for things that are going to depreciate. You're going to save up and buy cash for those. Okay. Step 2 is going to create a plan to gain assets. And we'll talk about that more later. Any questions about net worth?
Actually, okay, so your net worth is all your assets. That's counting any homes that you would own if there's more than one. Is that counting retirement and savings and that type of stuff, or just things that you have purchased?
Any assets. So retirement, savings, our example, we had $5,000 in the bank. Your house, your car. I have horses that are worth money. So like I factor those in as part of my assets. So you would factor anything. If you've got like a collection of jewelry, that could get factored in as well. So anything that you have in retirement or CDs or money market accounts or savings or checkings, that all counts as well.
Thank you.
Absolutely. All right. Once we talk about net worth, then the second part to building wealth is to focus on creating passive income. Okay, when you have passive income coming in, that means that your assets are now working for you and that you'll have money coming in whether you choose to work or not. Oftentimes, growing your net worth, paying off your debts and increasing your assets leads to an increase in passive income anyways, or at least an ability to invest in a way to increase your passive income, right? If I've got more money, even if it's just sitting in the bank, I'm now getting more money in interest or dividends. So even then you're creating passive income. So interest or dividends would be considered passive income. It's making your money work for you. Got that one in there twice. Sorry. So as you can see, your net worth is important, but it's really just the key to unlock your exit plan. So in order to have an exit plan, your goal should be to replace your income with passive income, which allows you then to choose your future. So instead of putting together an annual goal based on this year, you should focus on how much passive income you need for your exit plan and the steps you need to take to get to that point. So as previously mentioned, the first step in your plan should always be to pay off your non-mortgage debt. The second step should be to create for yourself a liquid emergency fund. That should be like 6 to 8 months of expenses for both personal and business. And those 2 steps are vitally important to creating wealth. having that emergency fund and getting that non-mortgage debt paid off. The next step is going to be to determine how much income you need in order to survive, right? What income do you need on a monthly basis just to keep a roof over your head and food on your table? Survival. Okay, once we have that number, then we're going to take it a step further and we're going to define what income you would need in the future in order to be comfortable. What would make it so that you no longer had to work, so that you have money in the bank, and so that you can live comfortably. Okay, maintain lifestyle. And then the third level is you're going to define what level of income it would take to get you to thriving. What monthly income would it take so that you can do anything you want or go anywhere you want to go, right? What level of income allows you to meet your goals for giving, for charity? What level of income would cause you to not need to check your bank accounts, right? Once you have those numbers, you can clearly define your wealth building plan. For someone, it may be, gosh, to keep a roof over my head and food on the table, to pay my utility bills, that's going to be $5,000 a month. To live comfortably, I'd really like $10,000 a month. That would be my comfort income. So my survival income might be $5,000. My comfort income might be $10,000. And then for thriving, gosh, if I was thriving, I was able to give whatever I wanted to charity. I could travel. I could cash flow college for my kids and my grandkids, maybe even my great grandkids. I could go out and buy a car that I wanted. That thriving income, that might be closer to like $20,000 or $30,000 per month. Or maybe it's just like, man, 15,000 would do it for me. Okay, so make sure you define those numbers so that you can clearly define that wealth building plan. For your wealth plan, step one is going to be have a handle on how much debt you have and how much you need in the bank to have that emergency fund of 6 to 8 months of both business and personal expenses. Then you're going to set your goal on how soon you want to be there. How soon do you want to have your debt paid off? And how soon do you want to have a fully funded emergency fund? For some, it may be this year. For some, it may be 2 or 3 years out. For some, it may be 5 years out. Okay. This is going to be the start of your wealth building plan, and you're going to need to factor that into your goals for the year. So let's say that you have like $89,000 in student loans, car loans, and consumer debt. That's just kind of what I took from the previous example. And you need $49,000 in an emergency fund, of which you already have $10,000 of, right? And your goal is to have all debt paid off and a fully funded emergency fund by the end of 2025. That's 2 years. That means that in addition to our monthly expenses, we're going to need a total of $128,000 over the next 2 years, or an additional $64,000 in income this year in order to meet that goal of paying off debt and funding our emergency fund by the end of next year. So years 1 and 2 of your wealth building plan, you want to factor in an additional $64,000 into your business plan in order to meet your wealth plan goals. Does that make sense to everybody? We're just taking our future goal, we're chunking it down into years so that we can factor it into our goal this year. Okay, as part of the business planning clinic, just so you know too, we talk about the fact that like, don't just pick a number out there. Don't just be like, I want to make $100,000 because it sounds cool to make $100,000, or I want to make $250,000. But we're actually going to assign values to those numbers, because that value is what's going to keep you going. If you know that, gosh, I need in this example, it was 49,000 with 7 months for an emergency fund, because I said 6 to 8 months. So I did 7 months. So I did $7,000. So 7,000 times 12 would be 84,000. So to survive, I would need 84,000 plus 64,000. So I would need at least 148,000 in my business plan this year, not counting if I wanted to take a vacation or do anything else of that sort. Okay, so just something to keep in mind there. And then you're going to add in those additional things. So that would be your wealth plan goals for year 1 and 2, is just we're working to get that debt paid off and that emergency fund fully funded. The next step is to determine what you need in passive income, and how long you want it to take you to get there. And then we're going to define the path, right? So if I've determined that, gosh, I would like 15,000 in passive income coming in, and my timing for that is, gosh, I don't think that's going to happen soon, or I really enjoy selling real estate. And gosh, I've got to pay off some debt first. It's going to take me 2 years to just pay off debt and get my emergency fund fully funded. Let's say passive income goal, I'm thinking like 15 years down the road, right? 15 years from now, a passive income goal of 15,000. And we're going to take 2 years out of that, because 2 years is just going to be setting ourselves up for success on that. I'm just going to get my debt paid off and set up that fully funded emergency fund. So now I've got 12 years to work through that $15,000 of passive income coming in. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to define a plan. What do you need to get there? Okay. That takes us into looking about what the flow of money looks like, so that you can define that path to wealth. Do I have any questions before I start in on this section? Do we all get the net worth, passive income, making sure we get that debt paid off, and then setting up our goals based on those goals? Okay. So let's talk about the flow of money. Again, that's going to define that path to wealth. Money comes in two different paths. We either have human capital, that is where you are working for your money. And we have capital assets, which is where your money is now working for you. Okay. All money that comes in from either path, you're going to have 4 options of what you can do with it. You can either spend it, you can donate it, you can save it, or you can invest it. Okay. And there's no wrong actions. You're going to have to spend some of the money that comes in to maintain lifestyle. You're going to save to ensure that you have that emergency fund in place, and you're going to donate because it's good to give back, right? So it's important to have all aspects of what money can do and the flow of money. It is important to spend some of your money and and some of your time and money doing good things. So charity or giving is always a good thing. And money is only as good as the good it does, right? So to grow your net worth, or to obtain an increase in passive income, though, you must invest part of your income to create capital assets. Okay, so we're going to spend some, we're going to save some, we're going to donate or give to charity with some, and then we're going to invest some as well, because that's what's going to create our wealth plan in the future. When you invest money, you have 2 options. You can either lend your money, or you can own items that are potentially going to increase in value. I say potentially because most of the time we look at things, we invest it in items like houses and stuff that generally go up in value, but the market is cyclical and sometimes the values do go down a little bit. There are both active and passive ways to both lend and to own investments. Okay, investments that you can passively own are things like stocks, real estate investment trust, REITs, and mutual funds, right? You put your money in the bank, it makes a return for you. It's passive. Okay, investments where you can passively lend money are things like money market accounts, CDs, bonds, and T-bills. That's where the bank's using our money and they're loaning it to other people. So we're passively lending. We're not actually doing the lending. Investments where you can actively lend are doing things like owner financing and private lending. We're in charge of where our money goes, what it gets used for, and what that interest rate is on that money. And investments that you can actively own are things like businesses and real estate. Okay. When you passively invest, you do not control the investment, the owners do. And when you actively invest, you remain in control of the investment. And there's no wrong or right answer. Both lead to financial returns. Active investments tend to have a little higher risk, but also generally have a higher rate of return. Okay, any questions on investment options? All right, when we focus on creating wealth, we want to remain in the active side of investments, or those that we remain in control of. It's just a faster route. Inside of real estate, there are a few ways that we can remain in control and create wealth and passive income. We can purchase rentals. We can owner finance sales. We can offer private lending. We can flip properties, and we can hold and sell wholesale contracts. Okay. And just as a side note too, private lending doesn't only have to occur inside of real estate. That can occur outside of real estate as well. So let's look at a couple of examples of how to create wealth. And keep in mind that when you're in production for real estate, right, you're running your real estate business, it's a good idea to live off your real estate income and keep your investment income to reinvest back into more investments until you reach the passive income goal that you desire. Okay. So one way to build wealth and create passive income is rentals, right? They not only create passive income, but they also help you to grow your net worth because properties are going to increase in value. So remember, you can look at either long-term rentals, like traditional rentals, month to month, year-long contracts or whatever, or more short-term rentals like Airbnbs or furnished rentals for traveling nurses or other short-term rental options. Okay. When you start looking at investing in rental properties, you want to first define what type of rental you want to invest in, whether it's short-term or long-term, whether it's single family, multifamily, right? There's lots of options there. And what your minimum cash flow requirement is per property. Okay, define that. So when you run your numbers, you know whether this property is going to help you reach your goal or not. Okay, based on your minimum cash flow, figure out how many properties you would need to hold in order to reach your income goals. And then next, you're going to have a plan of how many properties you're going to need to purchase each year in order to reach that goal. Remember, we had a goal of 15 years from now, we wanted $15,000 in passive income coming in. Okay, a good method for investing in properties or really any investment plan. Remember, we talked about like using some of your income for investments. Yeah, if you can, a good idea would be to take 30% of whatever you have coming in right now and put it into an account to set aside for investments. When it comes to rental properties, what you would look at is once you have enough money saved up for the down payment, you're going to go purchase your first investment property. Make sure to factor in your property management if you're going to have somebody manage that property for you, and repairs as part of your expenses when you go to make that purchase, and factor in what that cash flow is. Okay, once we make that first purchase, just so you know too, that first purchase is always the hardest. It gets easier after that, but it's just that risk of jumping in. Once we make that first purchase, we're going to continue to save 30% of our income for future investments, as well as we're going to bank that cash flow from that investment property from rental number one for our next purchase. Okay. Once we have enough saved again, then we're going to go buy rental number two. And you're just going to repeat that pattern until you reach your goals. The more properties you own means the more income you have coming in at a faster rate, and you're going to be able to invest faster as time goes on, right? When I first started, it was just 30% of my income going into an account. In rental number two, I had 30% plus the cash flow from that property. Rental number three, I now have 30% plus the cash flow from both properties coming in. So it's going to speed up the process. In addition, properties are going to gain value over time. So you may want to look at your options of refinancing them to take funds out for future purchases. Make sure that with a refinance, you can maintain the cash flow that you want. So just kind of keep that in mind as well. And I would recommend not going over 70% loan to value ratio when you do refinances. So you do want to wait until they begin gaining in value. Oftentimes when things go up in value, then rents also go up. So it can help cover that cost of that refinance. Okay. So let's think about our end game. Let's say that your goal is 60 properties with a cash flow of $500 per month for average cash flow, right? Once we've picked up those 60, so if that was our plan for the next 15 years, right? We're thinking, well, gosh, it's going to take us 2 years to start saving for that. So it might be like one property in year 3. Maybe we pick up 2 in year 4. And then we're going to start kind of gaining momentum as we go. So keep that in mind. So our goal is 60. Once we have those 60 properties with the cash flow coming in of $500 per month, then what you can do is start selling off homes that you want that have equity in them to use those to pay off your other properties. Those you're going to hold on to longer. This is going to increase the cash flow of the properties that you're paying off because now you don't have a loan on those properties. It's also going to help reduce your exposure and liability because you own less properties, or you could continue to hold them all. If let's say you're like, oh my gosh, I met my goal in 7 years, like it just skyrocketed, my business is booming, I was able to purchase more investment properties. You may decide that, hey, I'm not ready to retire yet. I want to keep selling houses. I want to keep doing what I do. And I'm just going to use that investment income to just put right back into the properties to pay off all those loans. You could do that as well. There's no wrong or right answer. And you don't have to pay off the loans at all. I just recommend doing it because the less liability you have, the more financially free you truly are. If you have a tenant that leaves a house and it's going to be vacant for a couple of months, it's not a big deal. Any questions about the theory behind rental properties? All right. Another way that you can gain wealth in order to create the money that you need to do capital assets would be to do wholesale contracts. It's a great way to work to build wealth, and it's a really good way to increase your net worth so that you can execute your wealth plan. If you haven't heard of wholesale contracts, this is where you discover an off-market listing that investors might find desirable, right? Usually as real estate agents, as we progress in our business, number one, we're doing the lead gen. So we're coming across properties all the time where we've got sellers that want to sell. And we usually have in our pocket a bunch of investors that are looking for the right opportunity, whether they're looking for rentals or fix and flips. Okay. What happens here is you're going to enter into a contract to buy the home, and you're going to have a assignment clause in that contract. Then you're going to connect that property with the contract that you already hold on it with an investor that is willing to purchase the home for more than you're in contract for. The difference is paid to you in this. That's how wholesaling works. Okay. So what often happens is I'm in contract on this property for $400,000. I've got an investor that's willing to pay $420,000 for it. I just assign the contract to the investor. The seller gets the $400,000. I get the $20,000 difference. Okay. It's a great way to start building wealth. Any question about wholesale contracts? All right. We're going to touch on one more form of generating wealth, and that would be becoming a private lending machine. You're going to become your own bank. So if you're going to use private lending to build passive income, it's just a matter of building your capital to a point at which you can have a certain amount of cash out in loans at all time. Okay. So for instance, if you want a monthly income of $30,000 for your Thrive goal, in order to have $30,000 coming in the form of loan payments, you would need to assume what your average interest rate is going to be. So for example, we're just going to say that our average interest rate on money that we lend out is going to be 16%. You would take the annual income of $30,000 times 12, which is $360,000. And then we're going to divide that by 16%. That gives us a total of $2,250,000 loaned out at all times to create that passive income goal. Okay, so what we're doing is we're working to build our net income, our net wealth to a point that we can start lending money out. And then we're going to start adding to that until we have that $2 million number loaned out to people at all times. And some of those might come due tomorrow. Others will come due in 5 years. And then we're just going to take and we're going to lend that money back out again. So becoming your own bank is one way in which you can create passive income for yourself and have income coming in on a regular basis. Seller held loans are also a way to do that. Like we've got a property we just sold that I've got a seller carry on it. So we've got interest and money coming in on a monthly basis for that sale. So you can do that as well.
How do you need like insurance or anything to do that? Like, how do you do that? Because if you have people who are not paying, like how, I mean, it's not like it's a rental where you can, tell them they have to leave or something. Like, what do you do in that case?
Yeah, so private lending, that's totally up to you. Oftentimes with private lending, you're lending to, it's like a hard money loan to investors. Oftentimes, if you look at it inside of the real estate market, you're talking about making those hard money loans, those bridge loans, things like that, that are going to bring you a good return for the time that the money is lent out there. And so there are always stipulations as to how you could foreclose, or if it's recorded against real property that you could foreclose or take back possession of and then resell. So there's always that option. There are also smaller options available to you where you can lend out, $100 to this person, $100 to that person. Like you could spread it out over 250 people or 250,000 people, right? To make that $2 million number so that your exposure or your risk is less. So with all investments, there's going to be risk associated with it. You may decide that, gosh, I would rather have rental properties because I know what that looks like if they don't pay versus doing private lending, or just talk with some private lenders and see what they're doing as well to protect themselves. Absolutely. There's always risk associated with it. Any other questions? Some books to check out to help you reach your goal are Becoming Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, and Investing in Real Estate with Lease Options and Subject to Deals by Wendy Patton. Those are going to be a couple of good books that'll talk about a couple of ways. Number one, becoming your own banker. And then number two, some other ways of using real estate to create income. Any ahas or thoughts from today's class? Like I said, I only touched on kind of a few routes of creating that wealth and investing, putting your money back to create that passive income, just because it's so broad a topic. So I just want to kind of open your minds a little bit. Any thoughts, ahas, as to this topic?
A lot of good ideas and a lot of things to think about.
Right. As real estate agents, as realtors, we're like, gosh, like what's our end game? Because we don't have retirement accounts unless you're stashing money in a 401k or something. Well, it wouldn't be a 401k, it'd be a IRA account as a realtor. You don't really have any retirement. So you really do need to think about, well, what's our plan? Where are we headed? And what's the stability of IRAs or 401ks or anything anyways moving forward? So you definitely want to have a varied investment portfolio, and creating that passive income coming in is going to be key.
Amy, do you mind going back to the previous slide so I can write the name of the book? Sorry. Thank you.
No problem. There you go. Perfect. Well, I hope you guys liked this series. It was fun to do. I appreciate you working with us with all of the medical things that we had come up in the middle of it that I did not have planned when we started the class or when I scheduled the class. So I appreciate you working with me. We do have our business planning clinic coming up on January 15th at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I expect it'll probably go about 3 hours. We've got some good tools and things in there to help you put together your wealth plan, factor that into this year's real estate, figure out how many transactions you should be closing in order to meet your goals. We have spreadsheets where you will be able to track how you're doing, track your lead gen activities, and then all these calculations are done for you. So we'll sit down and kind of pour over our business plans on January 15th if you want to join us. And as always, feel free to subscribe to the YouTube channel as well, because we do regular trainings that get posted there. There's usually trainings that get posted to that YouTube channel on a weekly basis, anything from lead gen to contracts to a whole array of things. Anything real estate related goes in there. Some stuff, if you're out of California, is not going to apply to you because it's things like figuring out how to use our MLS system or using our CAR forms, but other things are good for all agents, no matter where you live. There is a link for that in the chat box for the YouTube channel where you can go in there and like and subscribe. Also, the link is in there for the business planning clinic if you want to register for that. And there's a link to be notified when today's training recording is posted to the YouTube channel. Abby will send you out a message to let you know that it's been posted. Any other questions or thoughts or ahas before we finish up today? All right. Well, again, I hope you guys enjoyed the series. Thank you so much for joining me, and we will see you all soon.
Thank you, Amy.
You are welcome, Anna.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You as well, Connie and Diona.